Now, the foundry industry is considered to be dark, dusty, dirty, and dangerous. The 4 Ds, which kill every foundryman. And in the morning, Mr. Gumaste was elaborating about a clean foundry supported by Mr. Rastogi, that now the emission levels are reduced from 150 ppm to 50 ppm. And that's where my question goes to Mr. Kamdar, that since his journey begins from the sand plant, ends at the molding line. And that's everywhere we face the particulate matter. So how does the new technology help us achieve these cleaner and greener norms which are imposed by the local pollution control authorities?
Let's start with a given, which you've already defined, that the foundry is an industry per se which generates a lot of dirt, dust, heat, everything else, all the undesirable aspects. It still happens to be the most fundamental industry in the world, and without which most other processes do not take place. The whole approach that we have today, whether it be in industry or in this seminar, is to look at how to reduce the pollution and the dirt and the dust and the undesirability today of the foundry industry. Some of what I say may sound like trying to promote my own product, but even without taking names or anything, I'll just go border on the technology. The dirtiest part between the molding plant and the sand plant, let's admit, is the sand plant. That is the place where sand is moving around, it is falling from one place to another, going from one belt to another portion, etc., etc. A lot of it is very dry sand, hot sand, and has a tendency to fly around. In the original plants for the processing of sand as we had them, this was very rampant. Even today I see in quite a few recently supplied plants that basic technology which is available within the country is not being utilized purely out of economical considerations, and which still permits this sort of loss of sand or creation of pollution to take place. There are very simple elements of, let's say, designing a very simple thing like a belt conveyor. And it is these belt conveyors which cause the maximum loss of sand, where you find the maximum flying around of sand, spillage of sand, and just a little bit of more attention to the construction of the belt and to simple portions like scrapers and things like that can substantially reduce the spillage of sand. Again, my apologies if I refer to one of the plants supplied by us, but what Mr. Gumaste was referring to this morning, we have supplied the plant, as most of you would know, so it's not advertising. They were very, very conscious when we were manufacturing the plant, so when we were designing and manufacturing, and at the time of commissioning, where their engineers stood shoulder to shoulder with ours to ensure that the belts, the bucket elevators, the transfer points were all installed in a manner which ensured that there was minimum loss of sand through spillage. Having said that, also a point that was raised this morning on the functioning of a plant. Yes, we did it. We knew how to do it. We taught our colleagues at Kirloskar how to do it and all that. What they ensured was that they knew how to maintain that setting, how to continue to run the plant in the way that it has been designed to run. If I may use a common Indian phrase, no jugaad was permitted. And that is the culture that has been set in that company, going from top downwards, not expecting that only the lower levels will manage it. This, I think, would answer the main crux of the issue, that it is possible to avoid all this. It is possible to make foundries cleaner. Foundries have become cleaner. But the intention has to be from within. It cannot come only from technology or equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Kamdar, for that. And this leads to the psychology or the sensibility of individuals operating and managing the foundry. Everybody feels that whatever business he is into, it should have a legacy. मेरा बच्चा मेरे कारखाने में आके मैं उसके गद्दी संभालनी चाहिए. But is it the case with common foundrymen that their sons, their next in line, is ready to take the chair of father? Then the answer is probably no. And it's because of these 4 Ds, dark, dusty, dangerous, dirty. The same applies to the workforce also, the manpower which we require. As everybody knows, foundry is a labor-intensive industry, especially the fettling shop. And instead of working for 8 hours or 10 hours in a hot, humid condition with thousands of or billions of what you can say, dusty particles in the cubic meter, and ultimately suffer from diseases like silicosis, the workers prefer to stand in the air-conditioned mall, and they say so upfront. That leads us to live with whatever workers we get without asking for suitability of the skill set which they possess for the job. And that's where the efforts of Kolhapur chapter come into picture. I request Mr. Karkhanis to throw some light on the concept of Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini and the way they are adopting the required skill set into the available manpower so as to suit and serve the purpose.
Before Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini, we have to understand that Kolhapur Institute of Indian Foundryman chapter was working hard for availability of manpower. This was mainly because foundry industry as such doesn't have necessary qualification from many colleges. Only possibly 1 or 2 colleges all across the country give foundry technology course. And then most of the metallurgical graduates, they will be drifting towards software or other industries. So we were left with a challenge on one side, no proper qualification. On the other side, the foundry industry cannot afford a very high salary as can be afforded by other industries. So there were people, a lot of rural area youth were available. So one of the first thing, as he rightly said, one of the first thing we started about 7-8 years back was starting a certificate diploma course with the local polytechnic. This was foundry certificate course for 1 year. And anybody who has passed 12th, so we told them to enroll. And one of the first challenges was if you are telling a local youth to enroll for a particular course, and since the government institute was not funded by the government, and they were ready to do this experiment with a cost. So they were going to charge around 15,000 to 18,000 rupees for this course. So how do we ensure that somebody, a young man, spends that much money and he still doesn't know whether he's going to get the job or not? So first year we virtually sponsored those fees, and first batch of 30 people, they graduated. We absorbed them in the industry, and subsequently this started, and this was noticed by government of Maharashtra. And then subsequently they came up with an idea of a diploma in foundry technology in Kolhapur area, and subsequently this nucleated into an idea of having Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini in Kolhapur. Now we have Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini, which will offer graduation up to graduation, 4 type of courses to foundry working people also, because there are a lot of people, even in my own foundry, I have got about 6 to 7 people who say that, okay, we know foundry, but if somebody asks me what is your qualification, I have to say I am a matriculate, I am a 12th pass. So I feel that my knowledge is not represented by my qualification. So such people also need to have some qualification. So that needs to be verified, evaluated. So this gave us a unique opportunity. So government of Maharashtra, they came up with this idea of putting Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini. The local association of Institute of Indian Foundrymen with the government polytechnic, they took a lead. And now we have Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini, wherein anybody in the working class can go for a minimum of 1 year certificate course, then 2-year diploma and so on. So that is one method we have adopted to ease out the manpower crisis which is faced by the normal foundry industry. What is happening in this case is, in fact, as a first trial was the last year, and immediately from my own foundry, 3 people joined that course. And what we found was their knowledge level and their experience both started getting correlation with each other. This resulted in their improvement in performance. Earlier they were not applying logic to each and everything, logic of education. They were only relating their experience. So that has started happening, and as a result, the overall performance of those employees has started improving. So we have already discussed this in our IIF council meetings, and now more and more people are coming forward for this taking benefit of Dhatu Tantra Prabodhini.
Thank you for sharing this, and it's a great feat achieved by IIF Kolhapur chapter. But unfortunately, it's not being copied, or it's not being, what you can say, this message is not conveyed to all the regions wherein foundry is situated. So that creates a vacancy and a space for manless foundry, or manless shop floor, at least at the hazardous area. So my question to the equipment panel, that how do we design, or how do we foresee a manless shop floor wherein molten metal and sand is being handled?
To have a manless foundry, it is almost a dream. Okay, yes, you could reduce the number of people, and the typical example, I mean, not talking about Greensand also I can tell. There was an in GIFA 2015, there was a mixer exhibited by us, by our company, which it was a manless mold making. You don't need any operator. You can have a mold of 2.5 or 3 meters by 1.5 meters. It has got a 3D scanning. It finds out where the sand is needed. It will mix the sand with whatever strength you want. It will drop the sand at that point, and it will cover the whole area. There's no man is needed. The complete height is filled up. The man is ready. Okay, I can take it next stage. You can have a pre-compaction. It can be with a vibrating table. It can be a manless operation. Then it goes to curing. It is always a manless operation. It goes to stripping. It is a manless operation. Now beyond that, if you want a painting, it can be a manless operation. Core setting, generally in this type of foundries, you don't need so many cores, so you don't need an auto core setter, so you can have a man. After that, it goes to the pouring line. Pouring, it's very difficult to have a manless operation. You need somebody to pour the metal into the mold. Then the cooling transfer, everything is manless. It goes to the shakeout. In the shakeout, it is manless. The casting can be either picked up by a manipulator. You can have a self-discharge shakeout. The casting comes out without any operation. The sand reclamation is manless operation. thermal reclamation is a manless operation. So it could, you can do it in a molding line with very few people, but absolutely zero, somebody sitting in a AC room to run a molding line or a producing casting, it's rather a dream.
You talked about, yes sir. Yes, floor is yours.
No, I'm just adding a little. I'm not even talking of molding or sand preparation. I want to narrate an incident or something that I saw about 3 weeks ago in 2 foundries in India. And both are using Kunkel-Wagner molding plants, sand plants, but I'm not touching on that. I'm talking about the core sections of those foundries. I don't see either the core manufacturers or any representative of those foundries here, so I think I can say what I like. No, of those foundries, and you are not the manufacturer, I know that. There is one foundry which is producing a very large number of castings, has been in existence for quite some time, has a name for themselves. I happened to go to their core section. And what I found is that they were making cores on some manual machines or old machines, semi-automatic. Those cores were being taken out, they were being cleaned, they were being dipped in for painting, they were being brought out, they were being carried on racks to the core baking oven, coming out on the other side, again putting on racks, blah, 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 all sorts of stories. 120 people working on the core sector. I went to this other foundry on the next day, and I found an absolutely automatic core making plant, not supplied by a developed country. There are only 12 people handling that whole plant, starting from core shooting, cores coming out of the machine, being transferred, being transported, being dipped for painting, being taken for drying, coming out on the other side for drying, being loaded onto racks, and racks which are moving and being ready for loading with a core setting machine or a core setting jig directly onto the molding line. And they are producing the same number of cores, the same quantity of cores. Their cores are much better finished. Here we have reduced 120 to 12. It's phenomenal. It's just 10%. And you're getting better cores, you're getting a much cleaner environment and far greater efficiencies. So, to my mind, automation is the name of the game. I fully agree with Krishnan when he says that manless foundry seems to be a utopian solution. I will also go to the extent of saying that it defeats the purpose of creating employment also. But these are possibilities with more modern machines and technologies.
We came with the number of people involved. Some of you may be knowing in the general trend for a green sand foundry is you expect about 15 to 20 tons per man per month. Okay, this is going to be the very high. And I have seen one foundry which is not been producing on a disametic or on the green sand molding with a chemically bonded sand in Japan. They produce 30 people produce 1,000 tons a month. So that is the level of automation you have. 30 tons per man per month is the very large castings. And I had been recently to Mercedes Mettingen foundry where the turbine housing is completely done in a core package, not the green sand molding. It is done in a core package. Complete core handling is with a robo automatic, and only the pouring part is some manual intervention is there. It could be done, but you need quite a lot of investment in the automation. And the other thing is when Mr. Kamdar was telling if you have an automation in the core shop, you have very, very less rejections or damages in the core. Otherwise, in all core shop, which are core shop he was referring, I was involved in the foundry project, and I know why they have such a huge lot of cores getting broken, and now we are talking to them for a thermal reclamation because the rejections from the core shop is so high. So if you have a mechanization, yes, it reduces all this, you know.
Yes.
Along with foundry, manless foundry, and we have even witnessed manless or less chemical manufacturing.